I'm just going to give a radio check, and we're outside control airplane.
Entrepreneur Dick Smith has long been sounding the alarm over Australia's explosive population growth.
Why is it such a passion topic for you?
I benefited incredibly from the growth, but I'm concerned for my children and grandchildren.
As a member of the Sustainable Australia Party, his newspaper ads accuse other political parties of destroying Australia as we know it.
Because the plan of every political party is to have growth. They don't actually tell you the truth. They mean endless growth.
And is endless growth possible?
No, endless growth isn't possible. By the way, look down there. Look at the buildings there. They're high-rise, just going straight up. So we're putting our kids into termite mounds. Parramatta is going to be used as a model for other suburban areas. It's complete madness. It's destroying Australia as we know it today.
Below us, Western Sydney is being completely revamped. It's expected to account for 15% of Australia's total population growth in the next 25 years. Demographer Anne Evans says that disruption is inevitable.
It's really hard to separate infrastructure from population growth. So if we want to have more people coming into cities, cities like that will probably need to break a little in order for them to be repaired.
You can create a very vibrant, happy place to live and work, without it necessarily being seen as being on the wrong side of the tracks.
It's being lauded by government as the city of the future. David Borger is the former New South Wales Minister for Western Sydney.
And in the past, all roads went to Sydney, all trains went to Sydney, and nothing went to Western Sydney. And so what we're seeing now is a complete reversal of that.
So I've been flying here for 30 years. These are the last market gardens. All of these glass houses, that's growing the food for Sydney. All of those will be knocked down. There will not be one left.
For the worry warts that used to wonder how we're going to feed ourselves, let alone part of the rest of the world, I guess being a chemical engineer and a food technologist by original training, I've never seen that as a particular worry. And I think that's given me a greater faith in what science and technology can do to overcome seemingly very, very difficult problems.
How do you explain to a new migrant or a young family that they don't need growth after the career and the wealth that you've amassed in your lifetime? How do you tell them that they don't need that opportunity?
Oh, well, first of all, I wouldn't tell them they don't need it. I'd just say it's not possible.
Greater Sydney has evolved with 2/3 of the residential development west of Parramatta and 2/3 of jobs to the east of Parramatta. Now, that creates a hell of a headache with congestion, with 200,000 people leaving Western Sydney for work each day, and only 20% of that population have access to regular public transport. The solution is to better distribute jobs, workers and their homes to create a 30-minute city. Now, Sydney by 2050 will have 3 of those cities: a harbour city where the CBD is, Parramatta's River City, and a new parkland city where Sydney's second airport will go.
In neighbouring Wetherill Park, it's school pickup time for the Morrison family.
Did you have a good day?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy.
The South African migrants have come to Western Sydney seeking opportunity for their young family.
Do you think it's unfair if people start to say things like, more migrants means less equality?
It is unfair, hey? A little bit, but we also understand, there's so many people with no work, but there's also so many people with work.
If the Australian government told you that you'd have to go to the country for 5 years...
Yeah, I'd go.
Would you go?
I would go, yeah. We stayed in Darwin, we had the heat, we loved it. Oh yeah, we'd go. Hello, Mikey!
Without friends or family, they base themselves here in the future river city of Parramatta, where they are already enjoying the benefits of a 30-minute city.
It's like 3 stops and we're in Parramatta.
It's not necessary for us to go to the city to do our shopping and...
Yeah, not at all. We've never shopped in the city, actually.
Yeah, we don't have to.
Soon you'll have a new airport as well in the west.
Yes. That's so exciting. At least we don't have to drive far to fetch my dad.
But the Morrisons aren't tone deaf to talk linking migration to congestion.
We've heard it's very busy. We see it on the news. We see traffic, but Yeah, and we're happy.
So do you think there's more space for migrants like yourself to come
Of
and
course.
live in Western Sydney?
Of course.
If it expands, it will be.
Yeah, we've got a lot of
better,
land
yeah.
all over, of course.
We're really playing catch up for 30 years worth of underinvestment in infrastructure. In the past, Western Sydney was really unplanned. It was really urban sprawl. We had, I think Mark Latham called it the wedge of misery at one stage. You can't live your life spending 4 hours a day in traffic and then having to do the same when you go shopping.
We need to actually consider what is the volume of the population growth so we can understand how that actually changes or affects the demand for services. You also need to understand the distribution of that population growth as well, because that also affects localities, it affects cities, and understanding both those two dimensions is really quite key to ensuring that population growth is well managed.
Just like life itself, there can't be a city without water to sustain it.
Given climate change, there'll be less inflows into this dam and there'll be more demand. Warragamba Dam supplies about 4.5 million Sydney-siders with their water. And it's a massive catchment, 9 times the size of London's water catchment. So in London, you know, famously, every glass of water you drink's been through 7 sets of kidneys. I mean, they do a lot of recycling, you know. Other places, groundwater is available and people use groundwater. Places like Perth, half of their water already is coming from desal. So Sydney's got some decisions to make. I mean, when you're one drop short in a city like this, you've got an emergency.
Australia's biggest city has lost 25% of its total water storage in just 12 months.
Look, from an environmental perspective, you'd have to say that the rapid rate of population growth we have at the moment is stressing systems, and this dam just being one example of that. So slowing that growth is probably going to be a good thing environmentally. It'll allow us to catch up a bit. I'm not saying we should stop immigration or anything like that, but I just think we need a much more considered approach.
I have no doubt, as a technologist, we could carry 200 million people without destroying the environment. The biggest amount of damage ever done to Australia's resources was done when we had a population as low as 7 million. Our cities are not that big, they're big-ish. But when you look at cities of 5 million or 4 million, they're dwarfed by many cities that are 5 times bigger than that.
We don't want to turn a city like Sydney into Shanghai or New York City even. We want to keep the Australianness of our cities, but we need to be able to make sure that we can increase the density while maintaining the open spaces and vibrancy that we have in our cities.
A glimpse of our high-density future is here at Wentworth Point on the Parramatta River.
We've taken the population from 1,100 in 2009 through to 15,000 today, and the population will grow further.
It's in this Manhattan-like development where Clement Lund's young family are starting the day. And despite the suburb only having sprung up in the last 10 years, it's now the 3rd most densely populated postcode in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a struggle. I think the main problem is actually the commute. I mean, obviously, like, a lot of us here are actually young professionals, so a lot of us work, in the city, CBD. The kids, they got no park. This is the one suburb actually in Sydney where there's no public park.
Well, no one's forced anyone to buy an apartment in Wentworth Point, and people are leading their lives in a very different way. I mean, I don't accept this argument that density is bad. Density is great. Density can improve quality of life.
In fact, it was the developer here, not the government, who built a connecting bridge to a nearby train station. They also privately funded a shuttle bus service, which has now carried locals on 500,000 trips. But residents say government still needs to do more.
I think just better planning. Obviously, they've got the statistics. They know how many people will be moving into this area, and then they should, build infrastructure, ready for those people. Instead of, for example, here, the school only just got open, just early this year.
And what was relatively low-rise development will now go up, with another 2,300 high-rise apartments set to dwarf the existing ones.
Oh, I think if I came here now, no, I wouldn't choose to live here. Yeah, I think it'll be almost like a mini Hong Kong, I think.
Sydney at the moment is about 1/6 the density of London, about 1/5 the density of Paris, and they're both regarded as highly attractive communities to live in. But we could afford to double our density and not impair the community experience.
Look, you just can't build your way out of congestion. At the end of the day, we have to look at a range of solutions, and one of them is making better use of existing assets.
Balancing the tension between density, infrastructure and sprawl is a challenge for planners trying to create the cities of our future.
At the moment, it's totally inadequate. We build the problem and then people suffer with that problem for years before a partial solution is offered in terms of better roads or whatever. We seem to be stuck in a situation where, as Australians, we suffer the consequences of decisions made by politicians and others that we haven't been fully engaged in.
The government is yet to release details of its population plan, but there are plenty of Australians keen to have their say.
The business lobby, the greed is unlimited. There's simply a short circuit in their brain. The greed is just unlimited. And then, say on the greenie side, you have people who link it with racism.
But do you think it is racist to say we should limit migration?
No, I mean, if you said you were going to limit migration in a partisan way, on a discriminatory way, well, that would be racist, but I've never suggested that.
I favour a big Australia, not so much because you need massive economies of scale. I think big populations are more a question of fairness and morality. With so many resources we have here,